Hello and welcome to this video. This will be a video only about the image stabilization feature on the Surfola SF230 budget-friendly action camera recently purchased and currently available on Amazon at the time that I'm recording this video. This is around $50 or less depending on if you are able to find a coupon, which I did, so I purchased this camera. This video is about image stabilization. So what image stabilization does is kind of what you'd expect. Ideally, it's supposed to, no matter how much the camera is shaking, up to a certain point, it's to ensure that the video is still sort of smooth and not shaking in the same way that the camera is shaking. So I will just say, having owned 17 action cameras, if you would like good image stabilization, so camera shaking, but the video is still smooth, so that it's still a comfortable viewing experience, you're going to have to pay $70, $80, $90, $100. Starting at probably $70, you might see these cameras $80, $90 with a coupon. So maybe $65, but at least $70, $80 to have a camera with decent image stabilization. The $50 cameras, $50 and less cameras, more often than not, don't have great image stabilization. So that means that if your camera is shaking just a little bit, the video will still be very smooth. But if it starts shaking a little bit more than that, rather than maintain the smoothness of your video, you'll start to see a little bit of kind of jittery kind of shake in the video, which does not make for a good viewing experience. So about this camera in particular, let's just take a look at how to turn on the image stabilization feature. Then I'll show you a sample, and you'll kind of see it as I'm walking, that little shake, which makes for not a very good viewing experience. And I understand that it's just kind of, you get what you pay for in terms of this specific feature, image stabilization. You're looking for good image stabilization, you probably want to pay more than $50 for an action camera, even the cheap ones. I mean, it's still considered cheap if you're paying $70, $80, $90, as opposed to ones that start at like $200 from certain brands, which are good. But again, if your goal is to pay less, I think $50 is a little bit too little if you're looking for a good image stabilization feature. So let's go to the settings over here and let's just see what we see. Okay, so EIS, that's, I believe, electronic image stabilization. We have it on, so that's it, just on and off, and that's it. We have 1080p 60 frames per second. So when we get to image stabilization, we just select on, and that's it. And then we go to record our video. We have it set to video mode. We have 1080p 60 frames per second and as our setting. And ideally, this, no matter how much the camera is shaking, we would like to see smooth video. So what can I say about the image stabilization on this particular camera now that I've talked about it generally? The video quality on this camera is very good. However, when the camera shakes a little bit more, when you have image stabilization, there is a little bit of a shake, a constant shake. This camera, I was walking forward with this camera, walking in a straight line for the most part. You're going to see in the sample footage. And there's a little bit of shake to the video, which kind of makes it impossible to really focus on the video, because you're probably thinking about it, you're seeing the shake, and I don't think I liked it very much. So there's another camera I have, the Campark X35, which has much better image stabilization, but that one I purchased for $90. So bottom line, I think, is if you're going to expect good image stabilization, smooth video, I mean, you might lose a little bit of quality, but generally speaking, smooth, stable video, you might want to pay more than $50. And this is not a bad camera. It's actually a fantastic camera, in my opinion, for the money. But if this was an $80 camera, I would expect better image stabilization. Having paid less than $50, around $40, even with a coupon, I'm happy with this product. It actually has great video quality, in my opinion. However, walking around with this camera, the stabilization isn't ideal because there's a little bit of shake. That's all I'm going to say. It's personally, I kind of see it's very noticeable in the video. Decide for yourself if you like it. Sort of in the evening as it's getting dark, I recorded this video walking around on the street, kind of going in a straight line for the most part. So that's where I start to see that noticeable shake. Not when it's just moving slowly, but when I'm really walking and kind of shaking the camera a little bit. So that's it, image stabilization on the Surfola SF230 budget-friendly action camera. I do like this camera. I think it has good 1080p 60 frames per second video quality, but the image stabilization, in my opinion, is not the best, and I'm going to be showing that in this sample video shortly. And you can decide for yourself if you think this is good image stabilization. It's really up to you. But me, personally, if I'm going to be walking around with a camera and expecting good stabilized video, it's not going to be this one. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Image stabilization feature on the Surfola SF230 budget-friendly action camera, purchased on Amazon and currently available at the time that I'm recording this video.
Hello, this is a 1080p 60 frames per second video test with the Surfola SF230 budget-friendly action camera purchased on Amazon around a month ago, around the Thanksgiving break. The Surfola SF230, this is a less than $50 device with image stabilization, which is what we're testing around. Have the camera around my neck with a mount and some rubber bands, just so that I can show you hands-free how the camera is recording image stabilization test by itself, not holding the camera. It's around my neck. Maybe not the most comfortable, but I think would like to be able to record hands-free. It's just kind of convenient that way. So we've got the Surfola SF230. In my opinion, it's a very good camera for the price, because we have different features. Let's see if we can cross a little bit cross the street. That hopefully. Oh my gosh, lights. Those lights really in the way. Okay, so where were we? Good camera for the price, in my opinion. Well, like a lot of cheap action cameras, I don't think it records great in low lighting, but maybe I'll be surprised if we can see the sunset. So we're going to really take advantage here, and we're going to just test as much as possible, because I have 17 action cameras, and I figured, well, what's the point of having them if I'm not going to test them as much as possible? Hopefully for your benefit. Again, this is being recorded hands-free. Hopefully for your benefit, so that I can show you what the stabilization looks like, and then maybe that helps inform your decision on whether you want to buy this or not. There's many cheap action cameras out there on Amazon, and it's very difficult to distinguish between them unless you look at reviews, sample videos. Most importantly, sample videos, because there's a lot of cameras they'll write 4K high definition, but there's many problems that can occur with cheap action cameras. Some of them might be defective in the sense that they're like very zoomed in, and that's unfortunate. But this one I like so far. I like the audio quality. There's some accessories like an external microphone, extra battery, very cool. And with coupons, sometimes you can get this camera maybe for around $40, maybe a little bit more. They can be on sale, sometimes heavily discounted. Again, this is an image stabilization test with the built-in microphone. We have an external microphone, but we haven't used it. It's not connected right now. So just keep in mind that you do have the option to have better audio quality if you use the external microphone. Again, as I said before, this is an image stabilization test, 1080p 60 frames per second, hands-free, so the camera's just around my neck right now. I mean, usually you'll probably be holding the camera, but I decided to do this hands-free because if I'm in the city, if I'm in Manhattan, and I'm holding something, and I just want it to be able to record discreetly, I'll have this around my neck. But it's not very discreet, because it's pretty obvious that there's something hanging around my neck, and it's obviously an action camera. But if I'm holding something, to be able to record hands-free without doing anything with these hands is pretty cool. So we're going to go up the hill over there. Again, 1080p 60 frames per second. Keep in mind that on some cheaper action cameras, turning on the image stabilization will result in a loss of quality, even though you're going to gain stabilization. So if you turn on stabilization, again, I'm talking about cheaper cameras. If you're talking about the around $50 range, you might see a little bit of a loss in quality. And it doesn't necessarily even guarantee that the image stabilization is going to be good, right? You can lose quality. You can also still have the camera shaking a little bit in an unsettling way that makes it difficult to follow what's going on. So, image stabilization test, 1080p 60 frames per second. If you look at the specifications of this camera, the Surfola SF230, you'll notice it goes all the way up to 4K at 30 frames per second. However, I will say that when you're talking about the $50 range and you see 4K, more often than not, that is not going to result in smooth video. And I say that because cameras manufacturers, you know, they'll upscale it. They want to make it sound like it's kind of crystal clear quality. But when you're talking about a $50 action camera, I mean, the 4K is no different from the 1080p. It might even be worse because the video is kind of choppy. So when I always look for 1080p 60 frames per second. Again, this is a 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with image stabilization. If this is shaking, then you'll be able to see it, because not all image stabilization cameras have good image stabilization. Now, when you start paying $70, $80, $90, you have more options. You have options. The cameras, you can buy some cameras that have good quality stabilization. So just don't be fooled, or rather, not all 4K is the same, and not all image stabilization is the same. And sometimes you can find a really good deal. So if you're looking at a particular camera like this one, the Surfola SF230, you might just want to check prices and check until you see some kind of discount. But if you don't have experience looking at the prices, you might not know. So I'll say a good price for this camera would be, I think we had it like, it was $50 with a 30% coupon. I mean, that's fantastic. So paying around $40 in total, good deal. Paying $50, it's fine. But it's not really that much money. I mean, again, it's really considerably less, whether you're paying 40 or 50, considerably less than a camera that starts at like $200. I know GoPro is a very popular brand. So for GoPro, I mean, you're talking about paying more money, but you also get what you pay for. So you probably have good, nice image stabilization there. You have good quality, tons of settings, time-lapse settings, maybe slow motion, 4K, things like that. But it's getting dark, so just keep in mind if you start to see a little bit of a dip in the quality here, more pixelation, it's just because of the low lighting. Quite a nice sunset we have here.